Hey, what's up, branding experts, and welcome to On Branding Podcast. Today I have a very special guest, Allen Adamson. Allen is a branding expert with a very impressive background. Allen worked for big industry names like Ogilvy and Mather, Landor Associates, serving global brands like Accenture, Johnson & Johnson, FedEx, HBO, Marriott, Sony, and Verizon, just to name a few. Allen also authored a few books on branding, and his latest one is Seeing the How, which is the book we are going to talk about today. Hello, Allen. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for that introduction. And after such a nice introduction, I should probably just end it here and stay ahead of the game.
No, I try to keep it short. You're very accomplished. But let's talk about your book. So basically, the premise of your book is that we should rather focus on experience disruption, not product disruption. So can you just elaborate on that and explain the difference? What's the concept behind that?
Sure. For many years, marketing was driven by people looking at a product, be it a smartphone or a bar of soap, and saying, how do I make it better? How do I make the screen last longer, the battery last longer? And no matter what product business you're in, people were myopically focused on, how do I build a better mousetrap? And as you know, and most of your listeners probably know, the difference between one product and another is shrinking. Even if you come up with something better, it's not too long until somebody else matches it or beats it. And so focusing only on the product is becoming less effective as a way to stand out. And so my book and my premise is you have to zoom out and say, not only is my product good, but how do I surround it with an experience that makes the usage, ownership, and purchase of it more interesting, more beneficial. The old classic example is many people would argue that Apple's iPhone is a very good product, but what makes Apple's iPhone much better is if there's a problem with it in many parts of the world and country, you can go to an Apple store and get tech support to say, well, Alan, your phone's fine. Did you realize this switch was in the wrong position? If there's a problem, you don't have to call up a phone line and have somebody in a different time zone try to fix it. They can fix it in real time at an Apple store. So that's an experience that's more valuable than perhaps the product itself. And many, many categories are realizing that they need to think about how they surround the product, not just focus only on the product.
For our listeners, can we give more examples? You talk about Uber, Airbnb, and Netflix. Can you elaborate and give us more examples, please?
Yeah, there are many examples. So, for example, in the auto repair category, you used to go get your car repaired, you'd take it to an auto repair place, and somebody would come out and say, I'll take a look. They take the car into the garage and come out an hour later and say, here's a piece of paper. You've got to replace this, and this is broken. And that's the way it was for years until recently, when you take your car into many, many auto places, all of a sudden you get a text saying, we've looked at your car. Here's a video underneath your car showing your brakes are completely worn out. And here's a video of this problem. And all of a sudden you believe them more because you can actually see it with before you were not crawling under your car, one, it was not safe, and two, it was not something, easy to do. So a simple use of how do we change the experience? So instead of an auto repair place saying we'll use better motor oil or our technicians are better trained, they built an experience by sharing a video with their customers that took them inside the engine, under the car, showed them the treads. And so again, it not the product, but figuring out how to use some technology around your product, your service, your company to make it better without just constantly saying, well, the auto place across the street offers faster turnaround. What else can we do? Well, maybe we can make the experience better.
That's a great point, and we can see more and more brands focus on that. As you mentioned in your book, this becomes the fastest growing segment of the market right now. Many brands try to focus on experience, whether it is subscription or improving customer experience. So in your book, you give us 8 lenses. Can we briefly touch upon a few of them?
Yeah, I think, one of the lenses is that instead of looking at your whole business, can you focus in and drill down on one area that's a pain point or one area that is ripe for disruption or change? So, most people look at their whole business and say, let's do a little bit of improvement here, we'll make this better. And if you do many things, but they're all little average things, is not as good as really changing one thing dramatically. So there was a new startup restaurant here in New York about a year ago, or a year and a half, that said, young people, when they go to take out food, they don't want to talk to somebody behind the counter. They don't want to look at the menu. They don't want to wait. I think if we changed how we distribute the food from the traditional somebody hands you the food or serves you the food or brings you the food, younger folks don't love interacting with waiters or front counter people. So they set up a restaurant called the Brooklyn Dumpling Shop. Instead, you order on your phone, and when you get to the restaurant, there's a locker that's heated. You open it up with your code, and there is your meal. You don't have to talk to anybody. It's waiting for you. It's still hot, and you just take it and go. The food is not better, but for many, the experience, as the business term goes, frictionless. You just go in, you don't have to talk to anybody, and you don't have to wait. So while their food may be better than other people or as good, their experience now, so it wasn't the whole experience. It wasn't how we cook things or what type of menus we have or how the waiters are dressed. They took one point of touch, drilled down, and made a difference. Another one I talk about in the book is, for years, many people made calendars for your phone or for your computer. And they all look pretty much the same as when you used to do it for some of us to remember this, on paper. You used to write down Monday, I have this, Tuesday. And so, yes, this was a digital version. Monday, you have this, Tuesday. But they didn't realize that a pain point was that if I made an appointment to talk to you and something came up and you had to change it, I had to email you or text you. I can't do it at 10 o'clock. You say I can do it at 11. And then I text back, no, 11 is no good. And so they didn't realize that the pain point in calendars was not writing it down. The pain point was when everyone changes it 5 times and you spend forever setting up the meeting only to find out that it gets changed. So a startup came around called Calendly that said, put your calendar on this, let your person you want to make the meeting with set it up. If they need to change it, they can just go on, see when you're available. Again, Microsoft had calendars, Google had calendars, Apple had calendars, but they were all solving it through the wrong lens. They didn't focus down and drill. What's the pain point in calendars? It doesn't matter. You can have different color bars. Like mine's purple, yours is green. But all that was playing the game the old way until somebody said, what the real drilling, focus and drill down, what the real pain point is not when you write the calendar invitation down, but when it changes 3 times. So another example of focusing and drilling down.
Yeah, that's a great example, and I use Calendly myself. We use Calendly to book this interview. So that's a great example, and I think our audience can relate. So that's one of those 8 lenses. What's your favorite? What would be another one that we can talk about that is super important?
Everyone says they are very focused on keeping their customers happy, and we talk to them once in a while. But one of the lenses is called "See like a concierge," like in a hotel. There really is, and if you can provide that service, because if you have an okay customer experience with something, you might say, I had a flight to LA and it got there on time, but you're not going to share it. The only thing you share online are extraordinary experiences, good and bad. So if you're just doing okay customer service, and when you ask people, were you okay with the speed at the Genius Bar? Yeah, it was all right. Were they friendly? Yeah, it was friendly. But you'll never share that. So to really get people to share on social media, you have to go beyond just okay. Your average is over, and you have to do more. So if you start thinking customers like, what do I do to keep you happy? That's one challenge. But what do I do to surprise you or to give you something unexpected? Like in a hotel concierge, when you say, what's a restaurant recommendation? They may say, well, you asked for restaurants, but I see you got 2 cranky kids here. There's a place next to a restaurant that has a playground. So why don't you go here? And it will be a better experience. So all of a sudden you're feeling, wow, they solved a problem I didn't even know I had. They're seeing my problem. So if you see like a concierge, you'll get better customer experience and realize that just doing okay customer experience doesn't cut it anymore, because word of mouth is driven by wow. And to deliver customer experience, you have to take a different lens.
And you talk in your book about diversity of perspectives, right? Which this thing like a concierge kind of speaks to that. So being able to see more clearly from, different perspectives, try to step in the shoes of different customers and figure it out, prioritize empathy and curiosity and diversity, and try to see, yeah, go ahead.
Exactly. I mean, most people, you look at a team and well, we've all been in the beer business for 20 years. We know how to do beer. And they have one fixed view of how you brew the beer, how you sell the beer, until somebody comes in new and says, why do you sell beer only at bars this way? Why don't you put some beers on the table so people can choose their own beer when they come in? People get very fixed in their view of the world. And by having different people on your team, whether they see customers differently or see how you manufacture differently or see how you market it gives you the opportunity to have fresh eyes. And most businesses, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And this is the way we've been doing it for years. This is the way you sell, the waiter comes over, writes it down, takes it to the kitchen. So it's really hard to change. And ultimately, what is more important in marketing is to create experiences that people want to talk about and differentiate versus doing the same old, same old.
Just to sum up for our listeners, it's about identifying those experiences and trying to reimagine the whole way of doing things, right? Like, like those examples you just gave us, to ultimately provide a better customer experience. As you mentioned, the wow factor, that's what drives word of mouth, and that's what gets featured on social media and stuff like that. Do you have any advice for entrepreneurs or marketing executives?
I think the biggest challenge for people starting a business or entrepreneurs is they are so busy going from meeting to problem that they stop being curious about the world. Instead of speaking to customers, they'll read a research report, or somebody says, I spoke to 3 customers at the store and they seemed happy. So part of it is to make sure you as a person are exposing yourself, get out of your bubble. Walk through different neighborhoods, talk to different people, watch a different streaming show. Don't just watch what you always watch. Don't just go to your same social networks and listen to the same people. Because part of what will make you successful is seeing that next thing happening before somebody else. And just being early doesn't matter, but then figuring out how to solve that problem sooner. And you never solve it right on the first take. To do anything right, it often takes 2 or 3 swings. And if you have a head start, you will have a better shot. Because what wins in the marketplace is not the person who has the first idea. It rarely is the first idea winning. Apple didn't have the first smartphone. Lots of companies don't have but winning is about doing everything better and getting it exactly right. And to do that, you probably have to try it a few times. But if you're out of your office and not sitting in front of a screen or staring at your screen all day and talking to different people you'll get a little bit of a head start. And that head start will allow you to get your business to execute it better, faster. Because having the first idea is only relevant if you're the first to do it great.
Well said. So, and you talk about that in your book as well. Get out of your comfort zone. You will be able to have more experiences and notice those experiences and how we do things. Therefore, you will be able to get better ideas for your product or service and how to differentiate that and design that whole experience, right?
Exactly.
So it's been great having you on my podcast. We're going to link to your book, which is available on Amazon. And for those who maybe have some questions or just want to connect with you, what's the best way to reach out?
If your computer is working and your search engine is working, you can just type in my name, Allen Adamson, and it will find me. If you say you heard me on this podcast, I'll be delighted to chat with you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for coming on the show.
Talking to you.